Hey, what's up guys, it's your girl A-Simone back at it again with another video. So as you saw by the title of this video, we are getting into episode 5 of P-Valley of season 2. Like I said guys, P-Valley comes on every Friday night on Starz. So let's go ahead and get into it. So guys, this is the episode that I'm sure a lot of people have been waiting for. This is the episode where we get a flashback into how Keyshawn linked up and hooked up with Derek as her boyfriend. So as you guys know, we are in a deep south. We are in Mississippi, and Keyshawn is a beautiful, brown chocolate girl, and we found out last season that she is in a domestic abuse situation. So we see Keyshawn coming to the pink with bruises and black eyes, and then we find out later that the actual baby daddy, boyfriend is white. So from last season coming into this season, I feel like this is the backstory a lot of people have been wanting. And no disrespect to the other characters, because they really haven't done a deep dive as far as like really giving us like a lot of history of the characters. But this is the one that I feel like has had people really scratching their heads and the most curious, on the show. Keyshawn being this beautiful, brown skinned girl, and Derek being white, and she's in this abusive situation. So like I said, let's go ahead and get into it. So like I said guys, Mississippi and Little Murder are still on the tour, and on this episode, like I said, they officially give us a flashback to the beginning stages of how Keyshawn and Derek began as far as the relationship. So we find out that Keyshawn, Gidget, and Derek all went to the same high school. Keyshawn was actually trying to try out for the cheerleading team. Gidget and Derek were already on the cheerleading team. Keyshawn ends up being really nervous and not doing too well, and she doesn't end up making a team. So this is when we first see Derek kind of come to her defense, and we kind of see the beginning stages of them being into each other. Two of the football players start picking on Keyshawn for being, a darker skinned girl. Derek comes to her defense. They ended up getting into it. Derek tries to walk off from the situation, and one of the football players ends up spitting on Derek's back. So this is the first moment we see of Derek being violent. But in this situation, this was completely justified, because he tries to walk away and the black football player spits on his back. So as you guys know, when it comes to the South, the history of this country, the whole black, white, especially once you get into the deep South with, people feel like, the racism is still alive and well. For somebody to spit on you, especially in general, but especially with the whole dynamic of being black and white, like that is the ultimate disrespect. So this is the first moment we see of Derek being violent, but this situation is totally justified. So like I said, that's the beginning stages of Keyshawn and Derek kind of like noticing each other and being into each other. Then we also find out that Keyshawn, she lives at home with her stepmom, her dad, and her two stepsisters. So we actually find out Keyshawn actually lives a middle to upper class lifestyle, as far as her household and her financial situation. And when it comes, to strippers and dancers, I feel like there's a perception of them that, they've been through some hard times or some rough situations that led them to be dancers to get money as a dancer. But in Keyshawn's situation, the financial situation was, there. This wasn't a poor and disenfranchised, growing up with roaches and rats situation, growing up in the hood for Keyshawn. So we find out that Keyshawn is pretty much at home with the stepmom and the stepsisters majority of the time, because the dad is away on business. He's pretty much never home. And we find out that Keyshawn's stepmom is an evil stepmom. She doesn't treat her equal to her biological daughters. She's really mean and really nasty to Keyshawn. And we find out that the stepmom was actually a side chick. She actually started messing around with Keyshawn's dad while he was still legally married. And Keyshawn calls her out about it, and they kind of go back and forth and have a little, mini fight situation. And let me think. Yeah, so we don't know about the mom. I don't know if the mom has passed away or if the mom is just back living in another city, living a different life. We don't really get a backstory on the actual mom, but we do find out that the stepmom is a side chick situation. So we find out that Keyshawn is very insecure, you know, low self-esteem, and then she's in this household where the stepmom mistreats her, and this dynamic has kind of been set up because the dad is always away. So we find out that Keyshawn, she suffers from low self-esteem. She's really shy, she's really quiet, she's not sure of herself, you know, it's not a lot of self-love. Even though she's living this middle to upper class lifestyle, she's still very unhappy. And then we also have the dynamic of dark skin, light skin, because the stepmom is lighter skin along with the stepdaughters, and then Keyshawn is brown, darker skin like her father. And like I said in the beginning, when Derek first came to her defense, the football players were talking about Keyshawn being darker skinned. So we have this whole light skin, dark skin, colorism dynamic, and then we have Keyshawn being very unhappy with herself. And yeah, so as the time goes on, Keyshawn and Derek are, you know, kind of linking up around town in the city. They're going on little, you know, daytime dates, eating milkshakes, or drinking milkshakes and eating, you know, fries and hamburgers. And they're really feeling each other. So then we find out that there's a winter dance at the high school. This is not prom. This is like a winter, I think formal, they call them. It's pretty much, it's just a dance that they have in high school that's not prom. So all the girls are talking about their dates and everything, and Keyshawn, you know, she's just kind of like, okay, whatever. Because like I said, Keyshawn's really shy, really low self-esteem. So she's not even going to this dance at all, because she literally has no interaction with boys until, you know, she starts getting really cute and cuddly with Derek. So it's the night of the prom, it's the night of the dance, and the dad is actually there. He's taking pictures, and he actually asked Keyshawn to take a picture of everybody, the whole family, in front of the Christmas tree. This is around Christmas time, the winter time. So Keyshawn is literally in a t-shirt and sweats, and the dad hands her the camera to go take a picture. He like runs over there to take a picture. It's just like, why are you so excited to take a picture with the family that's not biologically yours? Now mind you, he did marry the stepmom, but it's just like, he was way too excited to run over there and take the picture. So as Keyshawn is taking the picture in her sweats and t-shirt, she notices that her dad is actually filling up on the older sister. So Keyshawn and the stepsister, they're both seniors, and then the second sister, I think she's maybe like a year younger than them. So it's the two older sisters, Keyshawn, stepsister, then the younger stepsister. So as Keyshawn is snapping the pictures in front of the tree, she notices her dad right there in front of her face filling up on the older sister. So we kind of get this insight that the dad has actually been creeping out looking at his stepdaughter. Now mind you, this is not his biological daughter. So we find out that it's some creep stuff going on with the dad, unfortunately. They don't really dive, you know, when it comes to this backstory, they kind of introduce things, but they don't really dive into it. I don't know if they're going to go more into it, into the season. If they don't, it's cool. You know, at least we got some backstory. But that is something that we see, that Keyshawn's dad is like filling up on the stepdaughter. So as Keyshawn is snapping the pictures, there's a knock on the door, and Derek shows up like a shining knight in armor. Derek shows up to Keyshawn's house with a full wardrobe, guys. Has dress, shoes, accessories. So Keyshawn runs upstairs to get dressed because she's totally not expecting this. She's wasn't planning on going to the dance at all. And it's kind of crazy because they don't actually show Derek asking her to the dance, but maybe he was just, you know, shy and scared and nervous. But yeah, he shows up like a knight in shining armor with the whole wardrobe. They go to the dance. This dance is around Christmas time, so the building has mistletoes all over the building hanging down. So Keyshawn and Derek are ready to kiss, and they notice an older white woman kind of looking at them. Then they walk outside from the dance, and Derek tells Keyshawn that that was his mom. And she's like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And he's like, no, it's fine. So Keyshawn notices a scar on Derek's face, and she says that's not from you practicing from cheerleading. And we find out that Derek is actually in a toxic household himself. So even though in this situation, Keyshawn and Derek, they both have middle to upper class lifestyles, especially Derek obviously being white, you know, that whole imagery. Inside their households, either one of them are happy. So the feeling that they're feeling is really some puppy love It's really some like their first love type situation. So they're outside or whatever, and it starts snowing. So Keyshawn, she's twisting around and twirling in the snow. She's laughing and giggling. And Derek's like, come on, I gotta get you home. I don't want you to get in trouble for curfew. And Keyshawn, she's so excited about the snow because this is the deep south, so it doesn't really snow. So eventually they pull off in the car and they stop at the spot and they're making out. And then Derek tells Keyshawn, you know, I've never done this, insinuating that he is in fact a virgin. So Keyshawn doesn't verbalize or say that she's a virgin too, but it seems like they end up having their first time together. She ends up pushing him back up against the seat and they do what they do. So we end up fast forwarding to Keyshawn being pregnant with the first baby. So if you guys don't know, Keyshawn has 2 kids, a 3-year-old, and then I think the youngest baby is like 1. So they fast forward to Keyshawn. They're both living, Keyshawn and Derek are living in their first apartment. And this is the first instance we see of Derek getting violent. So we find out that Keyshawn is about to pop. She's big. She's right around the corner for giving birth. And we find out that Derek's mom and, you know, his parents are just starting to help out because they obviously disapprove of, you know, this interracial relationship. And we find out that the apartment that they have is because the dad put down a down payment and, you know, first month's rent for them to be okay. So yeah, so we find out Keyshawn and Derek are arguing. We find out that Derek gets put out because of his relationship with Keyshawn. So earlier in the flashback, we found out that Derek actually got a scholarship on cheerleading to go to, I believe, Ole Miss, which is like a popular university in Mississippi. So evidently, when we fast forward to Keyshawn being pregnant, this is them like right after high school, I'm assuming, and I'm guessing he ends up not going to college because of her being pregnant. So they're arguing, going back and forth, and Keyshawn is saying, my dad has done everything, I've been working, you haven't done anything. And this is the first moment we see Derek get violent. Keyshawn is laying on the couch. He runs over in anger and yokes Keyshawn. He chokes her, starts choking her neck. And he's like, the reason I got put out is because of you. So this is the first official moment we see of Keyshawn being abused. And this is the first time, and this is while she's pregnant. So this is the very first moment he gets, you know, domestic. He gets violent with her. And it's just like, girl, if you didn't get out then, it's really only going to get worse from there. The first time you see a man put his hands on you is while you're pregnant. So Keyshawn, she's scared, you know, she's nervous, so she runs back home. Like I said, they're still living in the city, you know, where they were born and raised. She runs back home. The stepmom opens the door. It's like the middle of the night, but not too late, but it's late at night. It's after dark. It's raining outside, and the stepmom tells her, you can't run back home every time, you know, y'all have a problem. Now, mind you, the stepmom has always been mean and kind of mistreated Keyshawn. So the older stepsister, she's standing on the steps because they get a knock on the door. So she came downstairs to see who it was. So the stepmom is like, honey, you just got to deal with it. So in this situation, so Keyshawn asked her, like, well, what does my dad have to say? And she was like, oh, he agrees. So she's pretty much speaking on the dad's behalf, telling Keyshawn she can't come back home. Now, mind you, Keyshawn is literally in a nightgown. She's barefoot and pregnant. Literally, it's raining outside, and she ran home because of what Derek did to her, just out of fear. So the stepmom literally shuts the door in Keyshawn's face, guys. And in that situation, I'm actually curious, was the stepmom like downplaying this situation to the dad? So when Keyshawn, oh, I missed a part. So the night of the dance, Keyshawn comes home from Derek dropping her off, and Keyshawn thinks she's late because of curfew. The stepmom is sitting on the couch sipping on some wine. You know, she tipsy, she's feeling good. And Keyshawn tries to sneak upstairs, and the stepmom kind of catches her sneaking upstairs. And Keyshawn apologizes, and she said, oh, honey, it's fine, because your sister still haven't got back. So Keyshawn was actually the first one home from the dance, thinking that she was going to get in trouble. So in that moment, because the stepmom had been drinking, Keyshawn and the stepmom actually had like a bonding moment. And she was like, dang, girl, that outfit looks good on you, referring to the outfit that Derek showed up to the house in. And she's like, yeah, you know, it's great. So then the stepmom says, don't get excited about a man treating you like a Barbie, because he could always replace you. So like I said, this is like a bonding moment, the only bonding moment we see between Keyshawn and the stepmom. She's always been mean to her, but like I said, she was sitting on the couch sipping on some wine, so obviously her inhibitions were down, you know, her guard was down. So she tells Keyshawn, don't get too excited about a man treating you like a Barbie, because you can always be replaced. So in that moment, this is kind of like, you know, another red flag into the indication of the stepmom and Keyshawn's dad's relationship. So mind you, like I said, she was a side chick. She ended up messing around with him while he's married. He's never home. And then in this situation, we kind of get an insight to her giving Keyshawn advice, saying, hey, don't get excited to a man treating you like this, because this can always go away. So yeah, so like I said, let's go back to when Keyshawn showed up to the door. So yeah, so the stepmom slams the door in her face. And in that moment, I was trying to figure out, was the stepmom downplaying this to Keyshawn's dad? Because the way she said it, she was like, every time something happens, you can't just run off. But it seems like this was the first time he put his hands on her, but obviously they had been arguing before. So I was trying to figure out, was the stepmom downplaying the situation to the dad? Because the stepmom's not stupid. When she had that conversation with Keyshawn talking about being a Barbie, the stepmom, she's a grown woman. She'd lived life. She'd been messing around this man as a side chick. So she's far from stupid, even though she is mean. So for me, it seems like she may have been downplaying the situation between Keyshawn and Derek, knowing that in fact Keyshawn was getting hands put on her, but downplaying it to the father. Like, oh, you know, they just argue here and there, but they're going to be all right. It's just puppy love. And like I said, she was so evil. So it seems like that may have been what she was doing, lying to the father, making it seem like everything was just cute and puppy love, when Keyshawn is really at this house going through it. So yeah, so that's where we last end off, with Keyshawn and Derek being pregnant with the first child. So now we go back into the present time. So like I said, Little Murder and Keyshawn are on tour. So Keyshawn ends up performing at the strip club. I don't know what city we're in, but we're all over the South. And Jocelyn Hernandez makes a cameo appearance, which I'm like, listen, y'all getting money over there at Stars. Out of all the people y'all got Jocelyn Hernandez. No shade, but yeah. So Keyshawn does a dance performance in one of the clubs. This is not something uncommon. Like, strippers travel and go to different cities and do dance appearances at different clubs. So that's not anything new when a stripper goes to a different city to get some money from a different city. So yeah, so Keyshawn does her thing. Jocelyn comes up to her. It's like, yes, ma'am, you're doing your thing. Come link up with me at the after party. You know, I just want to talk. I just want to talk to another bad chick. I'm loving what you do, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, so then we go back to the hotel room or whatever, and Keyshawn's getting ready, and yeah, so the guy, Rome, who's the manager, she goes to his room, because everybody has separate rooms. So she goes to his room, knocks on the door. She was like, yo, why aren't you dressed? He was like, hey, I got some bad news. So Keyshawn, she already has the lash line, we found out. So he actually had a lace front wig line set up, but he ends up telling her in the hotel room that it ends up falling through. So he's like, hey, I know you really wanted this, but I actually got a shoe deal for you. So he has like a stripper shoe deal. When I say stripper shoes, like, you know, those really super high platform shoes that dancers wear. And she was like, man, this is okay, but I really wanted a lace front, because, you know, the ladies, you know, the girls, they love their lace fronts. He was like, yeah, I know, but I'm out here doing what I can. He's like, hey, can you go try on the shoes with your outfit? So Keyshawn has on like a blazer and like a skirt, but she has on like a sexy, like a stripper outfit under that, because they're going to go to this after party or whatever. So she goes in the room, she has on a sexy outfit. Rome walks into the room with his robe undone. And so Keyshawn turns around, she's like, yo, like, homie, your robe is undone. And he was like, oh, my bad. And he was like, oh, you don't like what you see? And she's like, what are you talking about? So Rome is like, oh, I've been doing all this for you. I've been making these deals. Like, what did you think this was? Now, mind you, Rome is the manager. We first get introduced to Rome when Little Murder premieres his song at the strip club. So when his song starts to pop off, Little Murder's homie goes and finds a manager who is Rome. So we first get introduced to Rome in season 1, and he sees Little Murder and Keyshawn perform. So when he first sees Little Murder and Keyshawn perform, when Keyshawn is up on the pole, like, he is mesmerized out the gate. If you guys go back and watch that episode of Murder Night, like, he is like looking up at the pole, like, he is mesmerized from Keyshawn. So out the gate, we see the attraction and, you know, the sexual attraction that he has towards Keyshawn, even though with trying to be him, her, and Little Murder's manager. So now he's in, you know, the bathroom talking to Keyshawn. He was like, oh, you don't like what you see? I'm out here doing all this stuff for you. You know, like, what's up? Now, when it comes to managers, guys, managers get they cut off the top. So he's coming at Keyshawn like, oh, like, you owe me. But as a manager, every deal, every appearance that a person does, managers get they cut off the top. If it's 20%, if it's a 20% rate, if I got $100 off the top, $20 is going to a manager. So that's how management works. So he's coming at Keyshawn like, yo, what's up? She's like, what are you talking about? So she kind of pushes him out the way and storms off into the bedroom. Now, mind you, she still has on her little like stripper outfit because she took off her blazer and her little dress or whatever to try on the shoes for the shoe deal. So she storms off into the room. Rome follows her and he pulls out his phone and he was like, yeah, I know what's up with your homie. So he pulls out his phone and he shows the sex tape of Little Murder hooking up with Big Teak. Now, in this situation, it seems like the only thing that could have happened is that he set up cameras in Little Murder's room. Because how else would he had the sex tape? When that scene happened, they didn't show Little Murder setting up a camera and recording. So it seems like he planted cameras in these guys' room, in the guys' rooms, or even in Keyshawn's rooms. Because like I said, they're all traveling and he's handling everything. So it seems like he set up a hidden camera because he had suspicions about Little Murder. And he pulls out his phone, shows Keyshawn the sex tape. And it's like, bruh, like, what's up with this dude? So next thing you know, guys, stuff gets real on this episode. He pushes Keyshawn down on the bed and tries to force himself on her. She ends up hitting him, knocking him down to the floor. She runs to Wodie's room, which is Little Murder's homie. She tells him what happened. And Wodie is like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, are you serious? So in the moment, he asks Keyshawn, well, what about the tour? Now, in this situation, I don't think Wodie was trying to be insensitive. I think he was just kind of asking in the moment because her and Little Murder are on this tour. So he was like, what's up with the tour? And she was like, I don't give a f about this tour. So she's crying. She has snot and tears coming out her face. So she said, I don't give a F about this tour. So Keyshawn essentially leaves and goes home. So the next scene is Rome. He's up in his hotel room partying like nothing happened. Wodie comes in there and he brings him a little treat. So Rome is like, yo, what you got for me? And he brings some booger sugar. So the whole entire time, guys, this whole entire season, we see that Rome is an active drug user. But we never really see him go 0 to 100 for the fact that he's actively using drugs every day. And everybody's just cool. It's just like, okay, whatever. You doing that booger sugar. We not into that, but it's cool. Whatever. But like I said, we never really see him react or go up off of, you know, sniffing lines. So this whole situation with him and Keyshawn, like, we saw this coming a mile away from season 1 when he was like infatuated. You can see his eyes lit up when he saw her. And then from this season, him doing drugs every single day. So we knew this moment, at least I knew this moment was coming with Rome, that it was going to be some BS with Rome, you know. So Wodie goes to the room. He brings him a little treat and he was like, go ahead. So when Rome pours the drugs out onto the table, he sees something suspicious with the drugs. So he tells Wodie, oh, you go ahead and take a line first. So I don't know if Wodie sniffed another line on the table because it was drugs already, like leftover paraphernalia already on the table. So I don't know if Wodie fake sniffed or he sniffed another line left over, but he didn't take the same thing that Rome took. So Rome ends up sniffing his line, guys, and next thing you know, he starts having a reaction. He starts getting dizzy. He starts seeing double. And Wody pretty much says, you know, how would you like to die? How would you like to be buried? He started asking him all these questions about death. Next thing you know, guys, Rome is laid out on the floor. So Wody set Rome up for the okie doke. And it's crazy because we don't really see a connection between Keyshawn and Wody. He's there on tour, but he's closer to Little Murder. Now, they're all in on this together trying to get this money, but his relationship is to Little Murder. He knows Keyshawn as a secondary situation. So the fact that Wody stepped up, because it's like in that situation, the first room that Keyshawn ran to was Wody's. So Wody took it into his hands, be like, you know what? Rome been on some BS from the beginning. He was sketchy from the beginning. So let me go ahead and handle this. So it seems like he made this decision in his mind without telling any of the other guys on the tour. He would have handled it, you know, right away and pretty much got Rome up out of there. Which for me was what was supposed to happen. In this situation, he went about it perfectly of doing it with drugs, because in that situation, it's like they really can't trace it back to you if it's some bad drugs. They really can't trace that back to a specific person. They're just going to look in the person's system. They're going to do an autopsy and see that the person like OD'd on drugs. And we know that Rome was an active drug user. So that was like the perfect setup for him to get Rome up out of there. But he really took it into his own hands, seeing that he tried to violate Keyshawn, even though they weren't necessarily like close or like on some, oh yeah, like that's my bestie. It's like, this is a woman and you really try to take advantage of her, like, and I'm not letting that go down. So it seems like Wody came up with that. He didn't consult with anybody. He went in there and did what he needed to do and took Rome up out of there. So Keyshawn officially goes back home. So she lies to Derek and says that they're taking a break in the tour. So she doesn't tell Derek about anything that happened. And if you guys are not familiar with domestic violence situations, it's a situation where it's like if anything happens to you on the outside, you pretty much have to go home and lie to this person who's putting their hands on you, because this person is going to go ballistic. So it's really a messed up cycle, meaning if anybody actually disrespects and does something to you, you have to keep it all inside, just because you know that the person you're living with is going to go ballistic. They're going to go out into the world and literally have a rampage if they find out that somebody's did something to you. So it's really a sick and twisted cycle. So she has to go home and not, you know, tell Derek that this man tried to take advantage of her, because now she doesn't, I don't think she realizes that he's going to meet his maker, because she got back. She didn't, I don't know if she took a bus or took an Uber. I don't know what she did, but she left the tour. So I'm not sure, maybe next episode we'll find out if they all went back together or what happened. But the way it seems is like she doesn't know what Wody has done to Rome. She just leaves and goes back. So like I said, she doesn't tell Derek. So her oldest son, his elbow is like hurting. He's crying. So she goes to the doctor and find out that his elbow has been fractured. And the doctor and the nurse see that he has bruises. So Keyshawn comes back. She confronts Derek. Derek is ironing his clothes for another interview. Excuse me. She confronts Derek and says, yo, his elbow was fractured and there's bruises. And Derek is like, what are you telling me for? And Keyshawn's like, oh my God, Derek, he's only 3 years old. Why are you doing this? So her and Derek start going at it. And he says, yo, you've been gone for 2 weeks. You don't tell me how to discipline my kids. These kids have been driving me crazy. So Keyshawn is like, yo, like, he's only a kid. Like, you don't have to do that to him. If you want to hit somebody, hit me, but please don't hit the kids. And she says, I don't know why you're getting ready for an interview. You're not going to get the job. So this whole season, guys, every job that Derek has gone for, he hasn't gotten. So I don't know if he actually has an official record or if people around town just know he's an a-hole. I don't know what the situation is with him not being able to get any kind of job. Or maybe he's going for specific jobs, but he doesn't have anything, not even something part-time. In every interview we see him go on, he's getting declined by these companies. So I don't know what's going on with that. If they just know he's an a-hole, if he's going for jobs he's not qualified, or if he does in fact have a record, you know, he has to end up catching charges or whatever. So Keyshawn tells him, you're not going to get the job, pretty much saying you're a freaking loser. So next thing we know, Derek hauls off and punches Keyshawn in the face. Her mouth and nose starts bleeding. He starts dragging her. He literally drags her from the living room down to the kitchen, pushes her up against the wall, and picks up the iron, guys. He picks up the iron and holds the iron to her face. Keyshawn, she's yelling, she's crying, she's screaming. She's like, Derek, please, anywhere but my face. So this is another insight to the domestic violence situation where she's trying to, negotiate with him. So instead of saying, hey, don't hit me, don't do this, she's like, hey, you could do this, but don't do this. So this man puts an iron to her face. She says, don't do it on my face. Pretty much saying, if you do it on my arm or my leg. And even when she was talking about the oldest son, she was like, don't hit the son, you can hit me. So this is really the sad, and unfortunate thing when it comes to domestic violence, where you have the women negotiating with the men, hey, you can do this to me, but just don't do this. And yeah, this is the insight that we see. It's just sad. It's just sad and it's ridiculous that women have to go through this. So eventually Derek puts down the iron. Keyshawn falls to the floor. She's crying. The kids are in the room crying. He goes in the room, starts yelling and screaming at the kids. And yeah. And like I said, guys, I don't know who the actor is. I'm not familiar with a lot of these people on the show. I don't know who the actor is playing Derek, but that mofo is crazy. Like, he plays crazy really, really well. When he be snapping out, like, it's 0 to 100. He really be snapping out. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, guys, that is my breakdown of episode 5. Like I said, we finally got a flashback episode to Keyshawn and Derek's relationship. Like I said, I don't know if they're gonna give us, I hope in the future they do kind of give us more flashbacks of everybody, because I would love to see Uncle Clifford and his personality, and I would love to see a flashback to everybody's relationship, or the main characters. So hopefully they do a deep dive and do that. I would love to see more of Keyshawn's situation, especially with the stepmom and the dad. But yeah, that is the flashback episode. It was cool. I would definitely like to see more, but if we don't, it's cool. But yeah, guys, that is it. Please subscribe to my channel. I hope to finish out the rest of the season and give y'all breakdowns every week. Subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff. Follow me on my social medias. Leave any comments down below what you think, anything I missed out, anything you disagree with, or your thoughts and opinions.